Hi, everybody. Jack Russell, president of OneZone. We are here for another Fisher's podcast. Mayor, thank you so much.
Hey, Jack, how are you?
I'm doing good. We've it's been a little bit of time since then. We've not only have you spoken to our Leadership Institute, you and us as a partner did our small business network. I thought really well. Yesterday, but we also had invited 600-700 of our closest friends to Fisher's Stay of the City.
Well, more importantly, you had another kid.
And I had another kid, which just every year we just added.
Jeez. Thanks for adding to the population here in Hamilton County.
We are doing our part for sure, but it's been a little bit of time, and I think I definitely want to talk about Stay of the City.
Yeah.
And something we didn't talk about before, but I really also enjoyed our conversation, and maybe we'll mix them together today at Leadership Institute when we talk about servant leadership and having 35 individuals that want to learn more about local government and the things that they do. And it was a good mesh going and listening to you talk there. And then, when we were at the event center talking as well. And so,
well, there's been a lot, it's been a lot on my mind lately about what this role means and what you need to do in a time like we're living in right now. And it can be very confusing because our notions of what political leadership looks like has been challenged and changed, and each person has to kind of decide what that is for themselves. But I think the servant part of the job is getting lost, and it's all about this like kind of political theater. And so over the last few years, as I said in the State of the City, I've just been out talking to Fisher's residents a lot through my own personal life, coaching basketball or being on the soccer field or whatever, being at church. And those men and women are so busy with their lives and they have challenges. They're trying to raise their family. They've got financial issues. They're dealing with work. They've got stressors, relationship issues. Government doesn't need to be in their lives any more than absolutely necessary. Right. And so, from my team's perspective and our philosophy in political leadership today is it should be like 90% service. And then the 10% when you have to step into the role of a leader, like in times of tragedy, in difficult times, in times of great opportunity, if you need to be that leader, then don't hesitate to do that. Yeah. But when it doesn't call for that, go do your job. Yeah. Like go work. Yeah. I think sometimes we get into these, and you've seen them a million times, these panels where we sit up there and everybody's like, why are you guys just such amazing leaders? It's always all that. And I think what's lost on that is we just work for you, and we should be servants first. And so I really wanted to share that in my State of the City. Not that, who am I to share my opinions on modern day political leadership? But
right.
I don't know. I felt strongly about it.
Yeah. And I agree with you. I think we've talked about this is, for in our roles, we may be at the table and having these conversations and we're worried about it. And then we go to soccer or we go and I may even, I always joke, like, I'll be like, have you guys seen this or what's going on? And they're like,
no,
like, I don't know that. And they nicely kind of say like, and I don't know that
I want to or need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the misnomer. I've had political opponents in the past over the years be like, well, it's because you're not engaging the residents. I actually don't believe that's true. Yeah. Fisher's residents are smart, capable human beings that consume an awful lot of information on a daily basis. But I think they prioritize and they say, well, today I've got 12 things I should care about.
Yeah.
And this is the number one priority. My kid's got a mental health issue. That's my number one priority. My job is stressing me out. That's my number one priority. I'm way down the list of priorities. And I believe that's the case because I would like to think it's because we're doing what we're supposed to be doing. Yeah. And so they can say, you know what, I don't have to think about that today. I can worry about these other things. And I think that's where government needs to live, is in that down the list, a significant portion. Unfortunately, in the algorithms of the world we live in today, it's, no, I have to consume every minute of your attention. Yeah. I need to post a video about what I'm doing. I need to post this to get likes. And it's me trying to consume every minute you have. Yeah. And I don't think that's what people need from their political leadership today.
Yeah, I agree. I think what's been unique and probably, and you probably experienced this, is it's now this weird, and I'm sure over your 10 years you've started to see this, is there's a lot of the federal stuff that kind of trickles down as well into that. And at the end of the day, I think people would love to get away from that. And as long as you have strong schools, strong public safety, the roads are where they need to be, especially when a random snow, it's 70 degrees one day and it's negative 12 degrees the next day, as long as they can get to point A to point B and get their kids where they need to go.
I mean, there was a time the federal government was viewed as, I want to have the ability to defend our country, national defense, and federal highway systems.
Yeah.
And maybe the aviation system. And like, if you can take care of that, everything else that I care about that makes life livable is really at the local and state level. But you're correct. I mean, nowadays we're dealing with federal issues that I never thought in my lifetime I would be dealing with, or even just perceptions of federal issues that get brought into your own community, where you're kind of scratching your head saying, well, I don't remember this actually being a thing in Fishers, but now I have to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because it's on the algorithms that they're consuming on a daily basis.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I did when we talk about State of the City, I do want to mention this, and then we can also talk about some other things. But I appreciated you acknowledging Senator Walker.
Yeah.
He has been such a strong advocate for us when it comes to meeting with us at a chamber perspective and our legislative priorities. And when you talk about servant leadership, he is just an excellent example of that.
Huge loss for our region, our community. I have the utmost respect for Senator Walker and what he was able to do in a short period of time. At the State of the City, I listed just all the things that he had been involved in. And to your point, I saw him time and time again. If a constituent had a concern, if a group like the chamber had a concern, he would not hesitate to pick up the phone and say, tell me about your perspective. And that doesn't mean that he would just go do whatever it is people wanted. It was, I want to listen, I want to understand the issue. And then what was great about him is he could go back down into that world of the state legislature where 2 + 2 doesn't always equal 4.
Right.
And figure out how to chart a path to get something effectively done. And that is a rare breed in legislators today. And I am disappointed that he's leaving. I understand why he is. And I wish him nothing but the best moving forward.
It says a lot when you go down there and the relationships he has. That is part of that job, and that people
100%.
Don't see is how do you build relationships with other people that may live in northern Indiana and southern Indiana and have different experiences and different walks of life. And I just felt like when we go down there and we meet with Senator Walker, he has these great relationships with people across the state, and I think that's telling of the person he is. And so I just wanted to mention
and not even just across the state geographically, but ideologically. Here's a guy that on women's rights, he took a very different position than his caucus did. He voted the way that he felt appropriately on redistricting, and whether you agree with either one of those stances that he took, he was still able to go back into the legislature and work with a variety of people that felt very strongly the other way and get something done. I mean, that's an impressive skill set.
Yeah. Well, I did want to mention him because I do think for both you, for the city of Fishers, and for OneZone, he's been a strong advocate for us.
Absolutely.
So
I agree.
Well, outside of talking about the second target, there's some other exciting things we've got going on. But I think one of the things I really appreciated about State of the City was talking about the journey. And I really appreciated, and I'll make sure that we add this, you talked about the life cycle of the city. And I thought that was a powerful image, and we'll make sure we add it, especially for people that are listening. But I would love for you to talk a little bit about that, because that was a powerful image. And sometimes people can get caught up as leaders in not kind of, I don't want to say treat it like a plant or nurturing it and stuff, but keeping, how do you keep in that circle?
Well, I think what's great about a State of the City is it affords you the opportunity to have a little longer conversation about where your mind's at. And too often in our world of politics, we talk about the what and not a whole lot about the why. And so what I really wanted to focus on or concentrate on is, well, why are we doing all of these things? And really you have to take a big step back and say, well, where are we at as a city? And what can we anticipate? And if you look around, there's a kind of a predictable model for cities. They're new, they're shiny, and then they enter into a time of stability. And during that time of stability, oftentimes you kind of get complacency grows, where you're like, well, of course, Fishers or Carmel or any of these communities in Hamilton County, of course we're amazing. We're always going to be amazing because we're just manifest destiny that we're always going to be awesome. But that's not the case. There's an intentionality that has to occur for you to be great. And so if you succumb to that complacency, what happens is you start this slow decline. And once you're in that decline path, it really creates a byproduct of it is just kind of negativity and despair and all the things you don't want to see in your community. And so what I've been thinking a lot about lately, and what I talked to my team about at our retreat is, can we break that cycle? Is there a set of policies and an agenda, if you will, that allows you to go, no, we're not going to do that. Mm-hmm. Instead, we're going to focus on these things. And by doing that, we might be able to stay in that component of stability and renewal, and cut out that like long path of kind of degradation. And, I don't know that I have a model of that anywhere, where I've seen it, but I believe in it. And I think that's what our agenda looks like is, okay, what levers do we need to pull? And I think a lot of those levers are, do you invest earlier? So do you say, you know what, we're gonna focus on areas that to the average eye would say, well, they're okay, but they're not great. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and get in there early with the private sector, and we're going to redevelop these areas. That's one scenario. Are you going to continue to push legislation that really focuses on setting a high standard and maintaining a high standard, which, we had a setback this year on rental caps at the legislature, which I appreciate you guys advocating for. But at the end of the day, we did have a bit of a setback from the legislature. But I'm a firm believer in you get what you tolerate. Mm-hmm. And so, I was talking to my Department of Public Works director just this week about, I saw a stretch of road that had a lot of trash on the side of it, and it just bothered me. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, hey, can we go get that cleaned up? I mean, it's that level of like, I want people to know that in this particular community, there's an intentional approach to saying, we're going to keep this at a high standard. So it's a set of ideas that I wanted to pose to the community and to the city council in that state of the city that said, you got a path. Either we just, as leaders, we sit there and go, hey, we're in good times right now in Fishers. Yep. Let's sit back and just enjoy it. Or do we take this other road, which is let's stay aggressive, let's be intentional, and let's not take for granted what we're doing because we're going to set up the next generation to be truly successful. Yep. And that was kind of the call to arms, if you will.
Yeah. Well, to follow up on that, how do we, I loved that. I think of whether it's, I kind of joke with you, like small town USA to cities. And I look at that model, and I thought about that model even as a region. Yeah. It's how do we know that there's parts of us that are really good and there's parts that we need to get better. Yeah. But, about a month ago, I was in Washington, D.C. with 19 other chamber CEOs from Spokane, Washington to Vermont, to Florida, to all across the country. And what was really fascinating, we all had the same macro perspective. We all had the same problems: housing, talent attraction, these type of things. And I the biggest thing I took from that was we talk about that as a region, kind of in our own ecosystem. Yeah. But to hear 19 other communities that go, yeah, we are also trying to figure out how to do that. Yeah. There's going to be winners and losers.
100%.
And I think about from a leadership standpoint, and even from our region, is like Indianapolis has in our region, or Central Indiana region, has kind of continued to look at that life cycle because, my new friends in South Carolina are trying to figure that out, and my friends in Washington, it's like, so how do we make sure that we're continually investing back into that? And I know, and I know it's kind of a random question, but it just hit me as you were talking about that. That I left DC, which was great, but I left going, okay, we gotta put ourselves, continue to put ourselves on the map.
100%. That's the sense of urgency, right? I mean, I don't know that I have a comment other than to say I agree. I think it goes back to this belief that there's a foregone conclusion that we're going to be successful. You can't, because there are a whole bunch of other people that are just as hungry or maybe hungrier out there going, well, you know what? We aspire to be Indianapolis. Yeah. And they're coming for you. Yeah. And what are we going to do about it? And that's, that's life. Everyone that's, listens to this podcast, that's running a business, it's the same thing. Yeah. there are other businesses, other competitors out there, and you're either growing, evolving, adapting, or you're dying.
Yeah.
And we're no different. Cities are living organisms, and if you're not evolving and adapting to the climate or the world you're in, likely you're headed backwards and ultimately dying. And but laced inside of all that is this challenge here in Indiana I see growing, where culturally there's almost this revolt or pushback on growth and development that we've got to work through together. You can't mandate it. You can't push it down the throats of Hoosiers today. You've got to lead through that. And that's going to be one of the biggest challenges about all of this, is the cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
Where we have to spend a lot of time talking to our neighbors about, if you want your kid to have an opportunity to live here long term, and have a good job, well, these are the things we need to do to make sure that that's available to them.
Yeah.
Right now, I think everyone's just like, well, why are we doing this? Why is a data center coming in here? Why is a big company moving here? Like, they're disturbing the way that I like to live my life.
Yeah.
And we got to work through all that. Because if we become culturally a state known to just say, well, we don't want any of this stuff.
Yeah.
We don't want to grow at all.
Yeah.
That could be very problematic as well.
Yeah. I think that's what I wanted to hit on, was really around what does that look like for the future, the growth, the development as well. And you always hear the words like smart growth and smart development, and that's different for different people.
Sure.
But I appreciate that. And I think going back to your comment about we're going to focus on these items, I think from a leadership standpoint, not only do you have external factors that can affect those things, like we just talked about, but also there's those bright and shiny objects.
Oh, yeah.
And sometimes that's, you have in your role, you have a council, you have your administration and your team. We kind of joke in our world, I've got 45 bosses, I've got 45 board members that we ought to kind of figure out how to row in the same boat. But how do you find as a leader staying disciplined on that, and how do you, is that
hard?
And it is hard because sometimes there's that bright and shiny.
Well, and there's a lot of political pressure on elected officials in particular, where it's like, well, man, if I do this, I can get in the IBJ.
Yeah. Yep.
And so there are folks that'll all of a sudden, they may have a strategy, but something comes along, they throw that entire strategy out because of the one headline they might get from that project.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best decisions we make as leaders are not affirmative decisions. They're no.
Yeah.
It's knowing what not to do and knowing when to do the things you should. And that's more art than science, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And it takes a degree of political courage and playing the long game. You can't think about these things in a today and tomorrow scenario. You have to think about them in a decade, or 20 years from now, 30 years from now. And so, those are the challenging things. I was talking to someone the other day about buying some parkland, and like, I don't know, should we buy the parkland or not? And I said, yeah, absolutely we should. And because it's not a tomorrow question.
Yeah.
That land will be available for Fishers residents to enjoy for the next 100 years.
Yeah.
That's a wise decision. That's a good investment. But if you're thinking about it from a headline perspective, you might say, well, someone might criticize us for having spent money on that park. Mm-hmm. Like, well, that's a snapshot in time.
Yeah.
That's a 2-week conversation about something that could have an impact for the next 30 years. Mm-hmm. And you have to have the political courage to say, I'm going to do that, even if it results in the consequences of, maybe I'm not elected anymore.
Yeah.
And that's a big problem we have right now with our elected officials, is you got to kind of have to be okay with losing.
Yeah.
To do the right thing sometimes.
I think that in your role, it's amazing to think, okay, I've got to think what my community looks like 30 years from now, 40 years from now in a job that gives you 4.
Yeah.
And that's a
But that's the service part.
100%.
Right? That's the service part, is like part of, at the most extreme level of the service, is to say, I'm going to come in here and do this job. And if it means that 4 years from now, people hate me or say that, you're a terrible, don't agree with what you did, and you get unelected. If you did it in the best interest of the community, and long term it is in the best interest of the community, that's part of the service. That's part of the gig. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's a lot of our elected culture today. Their value system doesn't have that.
Yep.
And I don't know how to reignite that other than to talk about it and then try to frankly model it. I have to live up to all this stuff I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that's never far from my thoughts, is to make sure that I'm not spouting off about things that I'm not reflecting in my actions.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of wind down our conversation, there's a lot still. I mean, when it comes to development, we see a lot coming on. There's even more exciting stuff going around the Fishers Event Center, but also in the Nickel Plate, we're seeing
a lot of activity.
That's, you and I have talked about this. It's the unique thing about Fishers is there's varieties of areas that are continuing to develop and grow. And while these projects take time, it's fun to see the Nickel Plate and seeing that development right there. It's fun to see, where we are. Right there.
A lot
of construction where we are. And I joke, and you and I joke that every time I move somewhere, there's you add construction. So wherever you need to move next,
I will do.
But I think that's the exciting part as well that people see is, and we heard that from our small businesses while, communicating on construction and stuff, but also I think there is a level of excitement with Andretti and with a variety of
we want to make sure that Fishers remains a dynamic city and a vibrant city. And I think all these projects, as they come to fruition, will really add another level of dynamism to our city. And, and it was a great conversation with those small businesses the other day. I learned a lot. I think there's a lot more that we can work on together, and really just continue to make Fishers a dynamic place for commerce at all levels.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate your efforts on that. I think having a strong chamber of commerce that's engaged and active and frankly serving their members, both by providing a voice and an advocacy and also just day-to-day operations. I think but together we can do something pretty dynamic.
Well, that's why I appreciate when we talk about the what and not the why. And I think when you figure that out, as at any organization, whether you're a business, municipal, not-for-profit, it changes your whole focus, changes your whole, and that's what I get excited about in partnering with you is that we both have a common goal to achieve. And it's amazing when you listen to whether it's the small businesses or those folks at leadership institutes, it's listening and then communicating effectively. And talk is cheap. And so how do we then execute and do it? And I think that's what's always been fun about working with you is, okay, here's the problem. How do we then go solve and create a solution? So I appreciate that, Mayor. So any other final thoughts on State of the City you want to make sure?
No, I'm glad it's over.
I think I got it all.
It was a difficult time for our community with Haley Busby's unfortunate death, and I appreciated the community in solidarity that day, providing thoughts and prayers to the family. They got a long road ahead of them, and it was a dark time. And in Fishers, I'm proud of what our police department did to bring accountability and justice to that. I don't even want to call him an individual, but that person in Ohio. And I'm just proud of the way the whole community reacted to support the Busby family. I know it meant the world to them.
Yes. Well, thank you, Mayor. I truly appreciate it. Thank you, and I look forward to next conversation.
Great. Thanks, Jack.